Well, hello and welcome to today's live stream. So today we're going to be talking about change, and in particular change management and how it relates to project management. And this session came about because I wanted to set myself a bit of a challenge to try to sum up the relationship between change management and project management and all that kind of ecosystem of things that are part of it. So hopefully we can do that. We can set the kind of frame around the whole thing and see how change management relates to project management, and also how traditional project management relates to adaptive project management, and how these relate to things like business analysis, organizational design, and systems analysis. So I've tried to find a way to put as much of it as I can into one picture. I haven't quite got everything into one picture, so I only need two pictures to shoehorn everything in, but I think we've got one kind of really good illustration for you, and then we're going to signpost all sorts of resources, all sorts of skills that you need to acquire if you're going to be engaging in project management and change management. And it goes back to something I've been saying for many, many years, which is project management and change management are two ends of the same spectrum. They're not two different disciplines. And in fact, I could argue that the reason I'm sitting here today is because I believe that fundamentally back in the late 1990s and at the turn of the century. When I was at Deloitte, there were a group of us in the program leadership team which specialised in project and program management, and a group of people in the change leadership team which specialised in management of change. And we were working together to try to create an integrated pathway, an integrated tool set, an integrated methodology and approach to leading change programs that didn't just try to say, well, here's one tool set and here's another tool set, let's stick them all into the same box, but try to find a pathway through it. And we were being reasonably successful. When I came to think about partnership, I was very clear that I wanted to make this my home, make this my kind of core skill set, this merged thing. The firm had very different ideas at the time about how it wanted to develop its service lines and its specialists, and that wasn't for me. So I parted ways with Deloitte and set up as an independent trainer. Ironically, over the last 20 odd years, it's over 20 years now since I left Deloitte, I've probably spent most of my time training people in project management, relatively little in change management, not been able to kind of finish the task that my colleagues and I set ourselves at the time. No idea how it panned out at Deloitte. That's not how it works. You don't get to kind of peek inside. Albeit I did go back and work with Deloitte training some of their people on some stuff for a while. But we're kind of back on home territory for me here. So what I've tried to do is put together a kind of overall picture. But what I haven't tried to do is kind of come up with a synthesis of methodology, because that's just too big a task for me, and I should leave that to other smarter minds. Anyway, we seem to have, we've got two regulars here, Patrick and Hammer Gumble. So hello to you, Patrick, on the west coast of the US, I think, and Hambo on the east side of London, UK. So good to see two regulars. Looks like we've got a fair number of people. So if you're here, please do consider saying hello in the chat. It's nice to know who we've got. It's nice to know where you are. It's nice to know what your interest is in project management and change management. It's nice to know what questions you've got, because I enjoy answering questions. This is not going to be, I have got some illustrations to show you, but this is not going to be a kind of formal kind of briefing come webinar, as I've done a few times. sorry, Patrick. I said West Coast, didn't I? And I kind of picture you on the East Coast, but you're to the west of here, so that's kind of how my brain fell apart. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, it's good to know who we've got on the call. It's good to know what your interests are. I'm always interested to know where people are from. I think we've now had people. I don't think we've had people in the same call from 6 of the 7 continents, but we've certainly had people from 6 of the 7 continents. We've not had anyone who is living in or has lived in in Antarctica, but who knows? One day, maybe. Looks like I've got some names I don't recognise coming into the chat. Ali Axmed. Hi, Mike Clayton, my teacher. I'm Ali. Gosh, wow, that's a hell of a name. I won't actually try and pronounce all of it because I'll probably get it wrong. But Ali, welcome. Interested to know where you are based. And we've got Muna as well. So Muna, hello. So both of you, where are you based? What do you do? It's good. It would be good to know. And certainly, if you've got questions, either about project management in general or about this topic, do feel free to ask them as and when they occur to you. I'm not recording this. Well, I am recording it. YouTube's recording it, and it will be live, but I'm not going to be turning this into a formal webinar or anything. So let's just take it easy and answer whatever questions come up. So there we go. Let's since we've got no questions, let's get started with the presentation. Let's pop that up. And so this is our topic. In fact, let's have me on there as well. So 2 me's for the price of 1. That's not bad, is it? So let's see if the technology is going to oblige us. I thought I'd start with the question, why is organisational change important for project managers? And as I say, I've long had this kind of image of a spectrum from project management to change management, but I did think that we could enlarge that, as I was thinking about this, to represent adaptive management, the idea that we can adapt what we are doing, we can learn as we go, and take a leaf out of the agility playbook and adapt it to the way that we work in organizations. So Agile Organizations is a big thing now, and I do think that our ability to adapt, and people have been talking about Kaizen for many years, the idea of constant improvement. So I think these are 3 sides of a triangle, and understanding how to operate everywhere within the triangle will make us better project managers. It'll make us better change managers. It will make us better managers, adaptive managers. Albeit we will all have our preferred place on that triangle. My guess is that many of you who are listening to this will prefer to be up near the kind of top left corner of the triangle towards the project management end. I'm seeing some chat coming through, so let's just have a quick look at that before it gets ahead of us. So we've got Eugene Augustine D'Souza. Hi, Mike, greetings. I'm in India. I'm from India. I am following you on YouTube, and your lessons and videos are amazing. Wow, thank you, Eugene. Brief learning, very useful and amazing. Thank you so much, and wonderful help, Mike. Well, it's my pleasure. I mean, I know, I'm going to guess that you're probably on, get my coasts right, the west coast of India, down the kind of Mumbai, Goa, Kerala strip, just from the name, but that India's a big place, you could be anywhere. But even there, it's 5.5 hours ahead of here, so what is it? That makes it 10:30 at night, so I do appreciate the fact that you're staying up late for this. Then we've got Ali. I'm ethnic Afar from the Horn of Africa, Djibouti. I'm not sure we've had anyone sign in from the Republic of Djibouti, so welcome, Ali. So what have we got? So we've definitely got the United States. That's North America. We've definitely got the UK. So that's Europe. Certainly geographically, if not politically, Europe anymore. sadly. So we've got Eugene from India, so that makes it Asia, and we've got Africa. So that's four of the 7 continents straight off the bat. Beatrice Muganda from Chapel Hill, North Carolina in the US. Splendid. Again, my Carolinas mixed. I did a seminar for one of the PMI chapters in one of the Carolinas, and I can't remember which it was. My apologies to the Carolinas. So great to have you here, Beatrice. Do, by the way, if you've said hello, do tell us a little bit about your kind of project, your involvement with projects and the work you do. Always interested to know. D from the DLB Theatre. Wow, anyone from a theatre gets my vote. Donna from London. Excellent. I'm not sure I know what the DLB Theatre... There was a time in my life when I was at the theatre 2, 3, 4 times a week when I was first living in London as an adult, returned to London. I grew up in London, but when I returned to London to work, a friend and I used to go to the theatre 2, 3, 4 times. Muna is Tunisian, living in Paris. Well, okay, so that means we haven't just got geographic Europe, we've got political Europe too. Splendid. And we've got To Level Up. Hi, everyone. Hi, To Level Up. Not sure where you're from. Hambo, how would you approach organisational change from an agile perspective? What a brilliant question. My answer to that is that I think the organisational change people have been agile for longer than the project management people. Again, haven't used the term, certainly as long. But the idea of designing a big change and implementing it all in one go and assuming that's going to work, I don't think change managers have been that naive ever. I think the idea of changing in stages, and starting with baby steps and then learning from that process, learning from change as applied to one group of people to apply it to the next, learning from change of one set of processes and applying it to the next set of processes. We've always been doing that, I think. But what I don't have a good answer to you for is whether there's any systematic methodology around that. But I think bringing in the idea of adaptive and agile into this kind of triangle of project management and change management, I hope it opens up that thinking in all of us as to where we're going to find ways to apply adaptive methods and agile methods into change. And so it's a really good question, and I don't have a really good answer to it. So anyone in the chat who has some thoughts, just an inkling, an insight, a bit of experience, or a question prompt in that direction, please do put your thoughts in, and we'll try and workshop it if we can. That'd be great. But yeah, I think all change has to be agile, because people are not always going to respond the way you expect, because we're humans and we don't behave in an entirely predictable way. A lot of the stuff I'm going to recommend that you learn about, by the way, later on, is about learning how people might respond to change, but that's only the broad brush. Individuals will be individuals. Okay, so we've got Bim Akintade, I think, from Canada. Splendid. Still North America. But we've now got the two main countries of North America, so that's brilliant. We've got Mathan Kumar from sunny southwest London. Excellent. My wife, when I first met her, was living in Putney, which is technically southwest London, so that's brilliant. Lovely part. It's actually, I'm in Hampshire in UK. That's Old Hampshire to the Americans, not New Hampshire. And it's beautifully sunny, and disappointingly I've had to bring the blind down. My office gets the afternoon sun when it is sunny, which isn't every day, and it's been glorious, and it was just all tragic to bring the blind down. But there we are. I have done that. Then we've got Harley from Toronto. That's okay. So to level up is Harley from Toronto. So that's another Canadian. Love all your videos. I would love to get into change management. What certification or course do you recommend? I don't have a strong recommendation because I've not really engaged with change management certifications. I do know that people who have done the ProSci certification have valued it. It's the only one I know about, really. So it's not that I'm going to recommend it, but I'm going to pass on a ProSci recommendation. I'll talk a little bit about ADKAR, and there is a video about the ADKAR approach on the channel. Let me just find the link for that. It is linked in the description, but I'll bang it into the chat. So take a look at that video, see if that seems like a good start. Then investigate the ProSci website and all of their resources, and see if it's for you. I don't know. I can't put a hand on heart and say I recommend it because I've got no direct experience of it. But second and third hand suggests that it's good and solid. So yeah. Right. Now, having got my kind of plug-in for being adaptive and agile in our kind of family of projects in change management, I want to try and show you my big picture, and I'll probably have to get rid of myself for this. So let's just go back to the slides and change the slide. Yes, I do need to get rid of myself because I'm kind of blocking over some of it. This is quite a dense slide. I'll talk you through it. So let's get that there. So this is my attempt to put the whole of project management and organizational change into one gigantic image. So what have we got? And I'm not going to try and kind of annotate it or anything, but what I will do is describe where we are on the map. So we start off on the top left, where we've got this cloud which represents the business environment, everything that's going on. And within that business environment, we as an organization will determine our strategy for the next period of time. And so that strategy is shaped largely by two things, I believe. One is drivers, things that compel us to make a change. And the second is benefits, things we want to get as a result of our strategy. And if our strategy is anything other than to remain as we are, and it's hard to imagine an organisation now that will have that as a strategy for very long, then that leads us to the subject of today's session, organisational change. And the first thing we need to do is design what that change is going to be. And so we see three arrows coming down, which represent the three elements of organisational change, which crudely are often described as people, process and technology, the three Ps. No, not three Ps, people, process and technologies, PPT. And in fact, we've also, when I was at Deloitte, we used to talk about people, process, technology and strategy, or strategy, people, process and technology. So that's got those four elements onto the chart already. So on the left, we've got new or modified processes. A new strategy needs new processes to make it happen. And in a crude, simple way, business analysis is about understanding the processes that we need. And processes in the modern world are supported by technology. And so we need to make changes to our technology, which could be anything from massive new implementation of hardware supported by updated software, through to new software platforms, through to simple mods to software. And again, a lot of this work will be done using Agile, or the projects around this will be largely Agile these days. And so now we're bringing in, alongside the business analysis, systems analysis, understanding how the processes and the technology are going to work together. So when we talk about business analysts and systems analysts, their focus is on process for business analysts and technology for systems analysts. And that's why you see in the large consulting organizations BAs and SAs as the junior tier. They're business analysts and systems analysts. But they don't work in isolation from one another. That would be crazy. And you can't build supporting technology without the business analysis. Systems analysis on its own is nonsense. And the third kind of leg of that triangle are the people, and the people who try to understand how we're going to reconfigure the people in our project are the organizational design people, the OD people, and they're going to figure out shifts in skills, in behaviors, in activities, in attitudes, and of course in the structures around that we put around the people to encourage that and to make use of the new technology and new processes. But those of you who think organizational design is about just building a new org chart, to my mind, the org chart is the end product of figuring out what behaviors, what skills, what we need, because how we actually arrange people within the organization should be the last part of that. Although, ironically, moving people around the organization in terms of where they're sitting and who they're sitting with is the bit that tends to get the greatest pushback. That's just reality. Now, figuring out how to build all of these new processes and how to build all of these new technological platforms and technological assets, and also figuring out how to create the new skills, the new behaviors, the new attitudes, the new activities, that's project management. If we're going to put a wrapper around making all of that happen, that wrapper is project management. But all of that has an impact on people. It has an impact on our staff, of course, but also on the whole ecosystem of our business partners, the people up and down the supply chain, the people we sell to, our resellers, our wholesalers if we're in consumer products, in our suppliers, in our logistics organizations that we contract with. So as all those partners, and it will have an impact on our customers as well, or clients. And managing the people aspects of that is what we think of as change management. So I haven't tried to overcomplicate this diagram. I did think about it by putting a spectrum from project management through to change management to illustrate that they're two ends of the spectrum. They're not two distinct disciplines, but I thought that would be pushing it too far. It's also worth saying that we have different communications channels for the change management process with our staff, our partners, and our customers. And this is another thing I decided not to try and put onto the chart, onto the picture, but internal communications will be supporting the change management efforts with our staff. Business development teams will work with partners, and marketing or marcoms will be working with our customers to communicate the change. So before we go any further, what do you think of this chart? Does this help? Does it simplify enough to make it easier to understand if this was something you'd never thought about or never really understood? Is it complex enough to capture enough of the picture to make it useful? Does it misrepresent your experience or your understanding? Does it open up new ideas to you? Please do tell me how you respond to this chart. And I know there's a lag between me speaking and you hearing, so it's going to be a while before stuff comes through in the chat. So I'll take some time to see what new chat came in while I was speaking. So I can see we've got David Vincenti, I'm going to guess, or Vincenti, I think. Poet and educator. What a fantastic tagline. Retired project manager, here to sharpen the saw. Fantastic. So those of you who don't recognise, I should do this as a competition. I'll do this as a competition. First person, not David, because clearly you know where it comes from, to spot where the phrase here to sharpen the saw comes from, gets a big thumbs up from Mike and presumably from David too. Can endorse the ProSci program, so there that should help you to level up. The Gestalt change slide is terrific. Can you comment on portfolio management's role in the change universe? Yes, I certainly can. So my view is that portfolio management is about taking all of the different strategic elements. So where I've got this strategy within the business environment leading to organizational change, the reality that and that's a nice one. I think when I redraw this, I'll build that in. But of course, our strategy is going to be multiple things. So those multiple things, multiple elements of strategy are going to need multiple changes. And that's going to create a portfolio of possible initiatives. And portfolio management, of course, is about determining which initiatives are going to get priority, which ones are going to run when, and making sure that when we run different initiatives in parallel, they're not stepping on one another's toes, that they're drawing resources sensibly, and that we are constantly reviewing, have we got the right elements of the portfolio of possible initiatives in our current portfolio of initiatives. So yeah, that fits really well. Of course, all of our portfolio of initiatives are going to be in the change universe. Some of them are going to have more or less people change element, and some more or less, Hambo's got Stephen Covey, I've just spotted that. So that's my answer. I think, David, that's a really good ad. I am hoping to kind of update this chart and produce it as a download, rather like some of you may have got my spotted. Over Christmas, I released an updated version of my periodic table, project management periodic table of project management elements, which was a bit of fun, really. It's not science, but I think a lot of people kind of like these big pictures that they can kind of dive into and critique and find their own things. So I'm hoping to create this. So any comments like David's are very welcome to help me improve it. Is the formatting good? I tried to do it a bit fun. Used a tool that I don't use very much, which I do like. I don't use it very much because it doesn't play nicely with my Mac configuration. When I try and fire it up in my main user account, it crashes all the time. But when I create a new user account on the Mac, it works perfectly. So it's not the app, it's some faulty configuration on my Mac which I need to sort out. But it's a tool called SketchWow, which is quite fun. And I've got the premium version of it, and it works really lovely, but just not in my own user account on my Mac for some reason. So I will be doing that, and if you're not a member of my community, if you haven't, if you're not, don't get my regular newsletters, then do sign up for that, because it will be. That's probably how I'll let people know it's available. Let me just grab the link for you. In fact, if I briefly pop over to the website. This is the page you want on the website. I'll put a link in the chat. So sign up for newsletter. So sign up for the newsletter. That is how I will let people know that I've produced that as a download for you. So there we go. Right, what else have we got in the chat? Gosh, there's quite a lot now. That's great. Ali says, time cost impact perspective during project process? Question mark. Time cost impact perspective during project process. Not sure what the question is. Obviously, time cost. I immediately think quality. The Americans immediately think time, cost, scope. So we've got those four corners there. Certainly, organizational change also has the same playoffs of time, cost, quality, and scope. Hambo Gumbo says that it reminds him of a myriad office moves. He's he's organised over the years, which is great because that is a lovely example of something that looks like a simple project but is actually complex organisational change because people will grumble. That's the point where you become Hambo Grumble. Sorry, dreadful. Ian Walters says, hello all. Don't think I know you, Ian. I know an Ian Walters, but the chances of you being the same Ian Walters is pretty remote, since both Ian and Walters are common names. So where are you? Who are you? What do you do? Let us know. Hambo says there is a logical flow to it which supports transformation. Yeah, I was going to get into the question of how does change and transformation, how do they relate to one another? What's the difference? But I kind of got getting it clear in my mind, and I was prompted to that thought by a conversation I had. If you may have seen the video where I have a conversation with Eddie Obeng, fantastically charismatic project management thinker, thought leader. I mean, if anyone is a thought leader in project management, it is Eddie Obeng. And when he came up with his 4 types of projects back in the early 90s in his book All Change, at that point he was in one of them, which is the Walking in Fog style of project. He was kind of foreseeing our fascination with Agile. So anyway, he said, people talk about change, a cool change transformation, when it's not. There is a difference between change and transformation. And yes, transformation is not about making a change or a set of changes. It is about a complete transformation, and it's hard to articulate the difference clearly without using the word change and transformation, but I am working on it, and I have a video in the planning for what is the difference between change and transformation. I'm going to be doing a series of videos, what's the difference between. I'm starting off with some low-hanging fruit in terms of YouTube views. What's the difference between PMI, or sorry, PMP and Prince 2, which of course anyone who knows me will probably know that I have to bite my tongue and not say it's a category error there. We shouldn't be doing this video. I'm doing it because it will do well on YouTube. But I do want to do what's the difference between change and transformation and articulate it clearly. So Hambo answers my question. Where does, unless he's just randomly put the name Stephen Covey into the comments, which I'm sure he didn't, where does David Vincenti's here to sharpen the saw come from? And he says Stephen Covey. Bear with 2 secs. So, Hambo Gumbo, as always, spot on. He's a well-read man, I happen to know from many of these. So, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit 7, Sharpen the Saw. And the metaphor is that if you get straight to work with the saw you've got, and if it's blunt, you will work slowly and not achieve much. If you take a bit of time at the beginning of the work to sharpen your saw, and frequently within the day go back and resharpen the saw, then you will get much more done than you ever will with a saw that's getting blunter and blunter. So it's a nice metaphor. It's nice to hear it being used and part of the thing, and it's big thumbs up for Hambo for being the first to spot the source of that. Then we've got Tosin. Wow, I'm not even going to try and say your other name there, Tosin, because I don't want to offend by getting it wrong, but from Nigeria, so that's more Africa, another part of Africa, which is great. Muna says, I think the chart makes sense. So do I. So it's good to know I'm not alone in that. So that's good. Ian says the chart did jog my mind to think of change management as well. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it's about. It's about getting project managers to think of themselves as change managers, not necessarily change management specialists. Just as I wouldn't expect a change manager to think of themselves as project management specialists, but we can't be project managers without managing change, and we can't be change managers without managing projects. So that's great. Hambo's laughing at something. I'm not sure when that came through, so I'll just take that as laughing with rather than laughing at. Ian Walters, new project manager at West Herts Teaching Hospital in the UK. Okay, so the fact that you're a new project manager suggests you're not the Ian Walters I know, because I wouldn't have described him as new at anything. Hertfordshire. Okay, so that's just north of London. So lovely. Hope it's sunny there too. Fernando from Honduras, Central America. I'm going to kind of pretend that Central America is more closely allied with South America than it is with North America. No idea whether that's politically acceptable, but just to get myself a fifth continent today. So what have we got? We've got Asia, we've got Africa, we've got Europe, we've got North America, we've got South America. We haven't yet got anyone from Australia. We don't very often because, you know, other side of the world to here, it's the middle of the night. I mean, there's parts of Australia and New Zealand where it is 5:30 in the morning, and other parts where it's 4:30 in the morning. I mean, it would be dedication to get up. We have had, I think, someone. So that's great. Hambo has put an Eddie Obeng TED Talk link in, which is brilliant. If someone can grab the Eddie Obeng interview that I did, I'd be grateful for that little mini plug. Anyone who's got a little spanner by their name is a moderator and can paste links into the chat. And what do you need to do to be a moderator? You need to come often enough for me to recognise your name and therefore trust you, as I have with Patrick and with Hambo Gumbel. So that's brilliant. And then we've got D from the Theatre Place. Are there any PM thinkers, authors that look at how transferable the skills are in the creative sector? None come to mind. There's a little nichette, and yet it's a big sector for project management. But I guess a lot of the people who are doing project management day to day are people like stage managers who are have other titles. So I think that's a really interesting question. But I don't know. Any that are actually actively thinking about that, blogging about that, writing about that, making videos about that. So no. And in fact, the not-for-profit, and I know that the creative sector isn't the not-for-profit sector. There's a lot of creative people trying to make a living and a small profit. But when I think in the UK of a lot of our theatres, I kind of put them into the not-for-profit. The arts and the not-for-profit closely allied, because the profit margins are so slim, and the drivers for the arts is rarely the profit is rarely the driver. But again, not a lot of project managers from the not-for-profit sector out there and visible and talking about it. So we need more of that. Hambo says, yeah, persuasion and negotiation relation to the creative arts, and he's put another link in there, so we can have a look at that after the stream. What I would say is, it is posted a TED Talk. TED's a good place to go looking for thinkers in every area, and of course TED stands for Technology, Education, Design. The arts is bang in their wheelhouse, as is project management, so we might be able to find something there. I should probably know. If I did a post on my website which was TED Talks for project managers. Let me just see if I can find it. In fact, if I can find it, we can have a look through it together and see if any of those look relevant. So 40 TED Talks for project managers is the link. Let's see if I can take us over there. Bear with. So 40 TED Talks for project managers. Let's see what we've got. Anything relevant? So the 10+1 topics: professional project manager, personal effectiveness, teams, leadership, getting the best from people, project culture, effective project communication, problem solving, inspiring projects. So I'm going to go with inspiring projects first and see what we've got. Elon Musk, Aziza Chowni, I bought a river and my city back to. I brought a river and my city back to life. Why did I ski to the North Pole? Engineer's vision. So tiny forests. Tiny forests is a really good topic, but it's not arts, I'm afraid. Thought-provoking talks. Any there? Work complex psychology. Plan long-term. Lessons in decision making. The other one I did think about was getting the best from people and project culture. You may, D, have spotted a big gap in the market. So, D, I'm going to put out a challenge. You could be the one, maybe, to bring that thinking to bear, because I'm not aware of any. My apologies. Hambo is busy pasting stuff, and then we've got I think I'm going to call you Emmanuel. Hello everyone. Where are you from? Be nice to know. Looking at your name, I'm going to guess at some point in your history there's some African heritage, but it doesn't mean you're from Africa. You could be from next door. No, you're not from next door, because I know my neighbours. And you're not either of them. Anyway, Ian Walters says, are there any change management fundamentals that a PM should have in their toolkit? Well, Ian, what a fantastic question. It's almost as if you kind of are my agent. I'm going to pop back to the slides, because that's kind of where we're going next. So let's go back there, and then let's go to here. And let's press this button. Key skills for organizational change management. This slide is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's absolutely honest. What you see in this slide are 4 pictures I got when I asked, I can't remember whether it was Pexels or Unsplash, for a picture of conversations. To a first approximation, the real skill you need, the absolute fundamental in your toolkit, is the ability to listen and then to ask questions, and then to listen and then to ask questions, and then to reflect on that, what you're learning from people, and to put that into practice. But I will go a little deeper, because that feels like a cop-out answer, but it isn't a cop-out answer, because anyone who's done any change management will know the importance of listening and talking with people. Emmanuel Bulda Okori is from Lagos, Nigeria. Okay, so that's, I think, the second person from Nigeria in this call. Brilliant. So great. I have no idea how to pronounce BLDR. Without vowels, it just doesn't make sense to an English speaker. Now, I know most Nigerians speak splendid English, and clearly you do, so if you can help with some phonetics, I'd be very grateful. So, let's go a step further and look at some of the really important models that I have found have helped me, and I think will help you. I haven't got the time to brief you on all of these models. Many of them I have done videos about, and others I will do videos about. They're on my list. But if any kind of pique your interest, the first couple of people to say, tell me more about that model, and I will try and do that. I'm just going to take a sip of water. So, Builder. It's a kind of an abbreviation, Builder, but Builder Okori. Okay, so you're a builder, or that's see deep in British and possibly many other cultural histories. We used to give people a name, a name that people called them, and then another name which identified what they did to distinguish them from another person. So you could be John the Smith, or John the Thatcher, or John the Fletcher, and those names now are recognised surnames. People don't think of them as, those family names have been handed down, and people don't do those jobs anymore. So I love that. Anyway, we're off piste. So I've divided it crudely into core core models and secondary models. The core models are the ones that we need to help us to really understand what's going on in change. And the Satir model, Virginia Satir was a family therapist. She knew nothing about organisational change, except she knew probably more than most of us. She observed and worked with change in families, but she observed, to put it really simply, that things get worse before they get better. And this is really important to us as organisational change managers, because the assumption is that we're going along on a nice steady line. In fact, I'm just going to switch on to... I do want to explain this one, because this is one that's not well known, and yet it is so useful. So let me find the right overhead webcam. Here we go. So if I draw some axes here, I probably need to put a light on this. Do I need to put a light on this? That's better. So if I draw some axes here, so if this axis here represents time, and this axis represents performance. Okay, so we've got time and performance, and we assume, so I'm going to start with our assumption, and I'm going to use orange for this. My apologies if you're watching in black and white, but I don't think YouTube actually broadcasts in black and white, or if you're colorblind, it doesn't matter. But our assumption is that we kind of progress along perhaps a slight increase, and then we make a change in our organization, and then over a period of time, and then we stabilize to a new performance level. And that's kind of what we assume happens. But Virginia Satir alerts us to the fact that that isn't what happens. What happens is that so I'm going to do in blue, I'm going to do actual in blue. And I'm going to dot it as well. What Virginia Satir said is we kind of, as we start thinking about change, people start getting nervous, and so performance goes down. And it reaches an absolute nadir midway through the change, and then it starts to pick up. And then if we're really lucky and we've designed our change well, we get to where we thought we were going to get to. And that's the Satir model. And what this warns us is that actually for a period in the run-up to starting work on the change, but the rumours are around, all the way to a period of time after the change has happened, we will suffer a degradation in performance. And of course, the discipline of change management is largely about trying to minimize two variables: the change time, which I'm going to call T delta, and the performance dip, PD, that happens there. Well, I suppose actually we could argue that the performance dip is from the baseline, but if you can minimize that dip and minimize that that time, then you've done a good job on your change. So let's come back to my slides. What next? Kubler-Ross, the grief curve. There is a YouTube video that I made about that. It's sometimes known as Dabda, which stands for denial, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And again, this comes out of psychology, and it's how people respond to grief. Kubler-Ross studied grief, so it's sometimes known as the grief cycle or the grief curve. But then people realised that human beings respond to change in very much the same way, and so there's a video about that on the YouTube, on the channel. I'll put a link to that in the chat. Right, Hambo's name-checked McKinsey 7S, and Ali's name-checked Resistance, so we'll take a bit of a closer look at those two. Next up, we've got the Scott Jaffe change curve. I've done a video about my kind of take on that, which I think is really, probably, if I'm going to say, find out about one really study one and understand it, that to be really useful to you. This would probably be my favourite, actually. It's the one I found most useful to me. Then there's the cycle of change, which is, again, there's a video on that on the channel. Hasn't had much love because it is really just an extract from my change course. So have a look at that, because I will, be pushing. I'll be plugging my change management course at the end with a 30% discount. But the cycle of change, I learnt about that, interestingly, from Rick Maurer. And Rick Maurer's, I'm going to be plugging. I'm going to be talking, because Ali's asked me to, about Rick Maurer's ideas. But his book is brilliant. Let me just get the right thing. This is Beyond the Wall of Resistance. This is an old edition. It's gone into a second, possibly a third edition by now. Rick Maurer, brilliant chap. But the cycle of change, which you probably can't see very well. Let's see if we can whop the overhead webcam on that. It's not very useful. Will it zoom in? But the cycle of change is understanding why change happens in organisations rather than how change happens. But that's really really useful thing to have. So that's a good one to understand. Let's go back to the slides. Lewins FreezeFrame. Kurt Lewin, possibly the greatest social psychologist of all time. He said something which is one of my favourite quotes of all time. There is nothing so useful as a good model, and I'm a big fan of models because I come from a science background, and so I kind of push them a lot in my project management and leadership stuff. So do take a look at Lewins FreezeFrame's model, and in fact, if we look across the charts to the secondary models, William Bridges' transitions model, which comes from his book Transitions, leans very heavily on. I won't go further than that, even though I think I can legitimately go further than that. Leans heavily on Lewins FreezeFrame. It's like Lewins FreezeFrame. It's got three steps in the transition. But where Lewin is about how do people respond to change, what Bridges does is he makes it practical by saying how do you build change using fundamentally the same model. Now, the McKinsey 7S model. I'm just going to have to quickly refresh my memory, make sure I don't forget the 7S's, what they are. But McKinsey 7S model is a model of how organisations, are put together with 7 components, and those 7 components need to work together for the organisation to be effective. And it's often drawn as a hexagon. I've just started drawing it, and of course I've not had the webcam on. Bear with me. So it's often drawn as a hexagon around a central thing, and originally McKinsey called this the superordinate goals. But I'm just going to call it the shared goal. The thing that the organisation is trying to do, and the 7 S's are 7 things that have to be brought into alignment to make the organisation work properly. And so the first one, in no particular order, is our strategy. We've already talked about how that's relevant. And then we need to bring that into alignment with the systems that we have to make the strategy work. We need, McKinsey called it style because culture doesn't begin with an S. And there may be a language where you can get that to work better, but style is culture. We need to hire the right people and get them to work within that culture. We need to give those people the right skills, and we need to remember I said earlier that organizational design, the last step in organizational design is putting together the organizational structure. not the first step. Most people think organizational design is about drawing org charts. It's not. It's about getting the skills, it's about getting the attitudes, the culture together. And so this McKinsey 7S model, I'll put a label on this. Do look it up. I wrote an article about McKinsey 7S model for the Management Pocket blog. Management Pocket blog. It's no longer actively producing new content, but it is live and active in the sense of showing new content each week. But it's revised. It's sorry, not new content. It's showing kind of. If I put that on a slope, then the light. So this is my Handling Resistance Pocket book, which will play into my answer on the Maurer-Clayton resistance thing. This is published by Management Pocket Books, and I used that they actually are located very close to me. And by very close, I mean if my wife opened her office window, and her office is next door to this office I'm in now, if she opened her office window, she could throw a stone at their window. But they publish a few of my books, and I wrote their blog for them, and that blog was called the Pocket Blog, and I'm struggling to find it. There we go. Let's bring it up onto the screen. So Management Pocket Books, give a shout out to one of my publishers. That's the one I want. And I wrote their blog for many years. Handling complaints is up at the moment, but if we search in here for 7S, hopefully there we are. There's the McKinsey 7S model. Not showing with shared values in the middle, but there we go. So that I kind of remember that reasonably well. I thought there was a longer article about the 7S model, but I could be wrong. Oh, so this is in the Tom Peters. Yeah, the 7S model is described in Tom Peters' book In Search of Excellence, which is a really good book about organisations. So that's 7S. If you've got sort of follow-up questions on that, Hambo, do feel free to ask. But we'll pop over to the other side of the chart now and take a look at what's there. So John Kotter, probably the most famous book on organisational change, is John Kotter's book, Leading Change. And his 8 steps, now represented in a more up-to-date book that he wrote called Accelerate, but that is like the playbook for making change happen. I'll come back to that. Then we've got William Bridges' book Transitions and his transition model, ProSize ADKAR model. I should be pasting into the links for my videos about ADKAR and about Kotter. So I will do that. Bear with me a moment. So let's put Kotter in first into the chat. Again, these are or will soon be in the description if you're watching on replay. So that's John Kotter, linked to my video on John Kotter's 8-step model and my video on the ADKAR model is here. What next? We've got resistance and Maurer. So let me talk a little bit about that. Let's get me up first. I think we'll start with me. So Rick Maurer wrote Beyond the Wall of Resistance, and back in the late 90s, possibly 2000, 2001, but I think it was the late 90s, he visited the London office of Deloitte. He was invited to do some sessions, and I went along to some sessions that he facilitated, telling us about this. And he has this idea of 3 sources of resistance, which is really good. And then years later, I kind of came to the conclusion that I had experienced other sources of resistance. So I developed what I call my onion model, which I wrote about first in my book, Handling Resistance Pocketbook, and that is this here, the Handling Resistance Pocketbook, and that suggested that there were 6 types of resistance we encounter, whether we're encountering it in the context of change or in the context of sales, where it's often called sales objections, or whether it's in the context of trying to make an argument or put a point of view, and so you're getting resistance to your ideas. But this is, will it focus? It's going to struggle. This is the onion model. I'll redraw it for you. And so this is my version. I openly admit that the prompt for it and some of the core ideas came from Maura, but the particular articulation is very much mine. I just adjust the mic. So the idea is that we get different layers of resistance as we deal with change, and the first layer of resistance we get is when people say something like, I don't understand why we need to change. And the way we'd handle that, quite simply, is we respond by explaining why change needs to happen. And this resistance occurs not because people are stupid, but because they just don't see the triggers for change. They're not aware of it. It's not in their part of the organisation that things are going wrong, or they're not studying the new technology, or they're not seeing the trends in the market. But as with every onion, as you peel away layers, the next one gets a bit more spicy, a bit hotter and harder to deal with. And this next level is, okay, I get that we need to change, but the next thing they say is, okay, I get we need to change, but I don't understand why this change. Okay, so now they've seen we need to change, but they don't understand why we're doing it this way. So this requires that we sit down and explain why we have chosen the solution we've chosen, what its advantages are. Then, next, we get another tier, which I often think of not as the most difficult tier, but the most important tier. Okay, they say, I understand why we're doing this, but the next thing they say is, okay, I don't like this change. And there's 2 reasons why they might not like it. The first reason is because they feel like they're going to be disadvantaged. They feel like this change is going to be bad for them. And they may be right about it, they may be wrong about it. If they're wrong about it, great. You can work with them to show them why this change is good for them, despite what they thought first. But they may be right, because in organisations, we cannot be making changes that are good for everyone, simply because all those changes have been made already. You know, the chances are that you'll find something you can do that everyone benefits. Customers, clients, business partners, every single member of staff, every stakeholder there is. You know, that would be marvellous, but life isn't like that. In the real world, we have to make changes where we make the changes that are good for the maximum number of people and giving the maximum benefit and all of that. But there will be some victims, some people who are worse off. And the important thing here is not to lie to them and say, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine, because it may not be for them. So you need to work with them to understand their problems and how you give them whatever resources you can to help them get through it. Now, the other reason why people say, I don't like this change is, it's nothing to do with how it's going to affect them, but they've looked at the change that you're planning to make, or they've looked at the way you're planning to make that change, and they've concluded that actually they think it's wrong. It's not the best thing for the organisation. They may be right about this, so you need to listen to them. But it does get tougher, because next up we've got, okay, It's not that I don't like this change, but I don't like change. It's the change itself that's the problem for them. I don't like change. And of course, nobody likes change because change is scary. Except we all live through change all the time. The difference between person A and person B isn't that one likes change and the other doesn't like change. It's where their threshold for comfort lies. Some people can absorb an awful lot of change without being disturbed. Other people, the tiniest little change bothers them massively. Where we are on the spectrum is what's important, and for everyone there is a point where they won't like it, and so we need to work with them to help them to understand that they can get through this change. And then right at the heart we get another deeper layer, and that deeper layer is where they say something like this: I don't like you. And this is rarely you, the change agent, the project manager, whatever. It's what to them you represent. This is not about change, the change. It's about the fact that when change happens, people resist, and everyone knows that. And so this is an excuse for them to be naughty, to take out their anger, their upset, their grievances, their frustrations with the organisation, and you just happen to be the person who's in the way. This is you, the organisation, not you, the individual. And by the way, I don't want to go into it in too much detail, but there is a rotten core to the onion. There are one or two people in every organisation who resist for a completely different reason. They resist because I like to resist. Some people actually are wired to resist everything. You say potato, they say potato. You say black, they say white. You say up, they say down. You say it's a beautiful sunny day, they say it's miserable. Some people just, it's called a polarity response. Whatever you say, they'll say the opposite because that makes them feel important. This is not something you can handle as a change manager because it's something about their personality. It's fundamental to them, and therefore it's you kind of need a psychology degree to understand how to deal with that. So the original ideas that inspired this model came from Rick Maurer. My articulation of them and my extension of those ideas into this sort of 5-6 layer model is in the Handling Resistance Pocketbook. So let's go back briefly, see what else we've got in here in terms of our secondary models. We're going to run, as always, for about 90 minutes, so we've got another 20 minutes to get the questions in. So what's next? Well, behavioral economics, nudge. You probably heard of nudge theory. It won a Nobel Prize for Richard Thaler. Thaler and Sunstein's book, Nudge, and is it Misbehaving? This idea that we can, if we design interventions properly, we can nudge people to make changes and make them feel that it's comfortable. And that's a really interesting set of ideas which we should know about and understand. Then we've got Chip Heath and Dan Heath, the Heath brothers. In fact, what I'm going to do is just get up my picture for a moment. I should be showing you some of these books, I feel. There we go. So here's Nudge. What else have we got in the pile? Right. This is the Kotter book. This is my edition of the Kotter book. It's an old edition. This is Bridges, Transitions, again, an old edition. Another particularly good book, but not one of my top 3 that I'll be recommending, is Rosabeth Moss Kanter's Change Masters. There's loads of great books. I pulled down just a sample from my shelf. They're all here, but there's loads of them. Let's go back. So slide deck. Oh, wrong one. So what else have we got? We've got the Deming cycle, the Shewhart cycle: plan, do, check, and act. very basic, and OODA loop as well. I did an article on the OODA loop, which I haven't actually got a link to. So know about those things. And then, press the wrong button there. We want the next slide, don't we? I'm going to, this is a lot to read. And so I thought, of all the books I've got and have read and have valued, which 3 would I recommend? And actually, I've recommended one here I haven't got because it's an updated version. But the first one is Kotter's Excel R8. I think that is the new book that's taken over from Leading Change and has his 8-step model in. But anything by Kotter on change is going to be well worth reading. He just came up with the very simple, very effective 8-step process for building change, and it's very practical, and it will appeal very well to project managers because it doesn't go deep into the psychology, it doesn't go deep into the soft and squishy stuff, which change people on the change management side of that triangle are going to really thrive with and work hard at understanding and putting into practice. For those who want the basics of how do you structure a change project, John Kotter, spot on. My second essential book is Switch by Heath and Heath. And what I think is marvellous about that is they write like journalists. In fact, I think one of them is a journalist. So their books are very, very readable. And Switch goes right into the sort of topic of change. They've done lots of research. They've researched lots of books, including Nudge, including Kotter's book. In fact, I think they name check The Heart of Change. My copy of that I lent someone, never came back. Was written by Kotter and Dan Cohen, who was a Deloitte partner. So I went to the launch of that book in the States. That was a fantastic experience. And now someone pinched my book. But they use the metaphor of someone riding an elephant. A change is being like riding an elephant, and the 3 things you have to do is firstly kind of point the rider in the right direction, and then you have to motivate the elephant to move, and you also have to shape the path so that the elephant has got the right path to follow. It's a brilliant kind of sustained metaphor of all the books which take a management topic and bring it into the kind of journalistic pattern of telling stories, researching it, telling stories, and finding a compelling metaphor around the whole thing. Switch works as well as any and better than most. I think they are better than a lot of writers who are trying to do the same thing. So I put them up there with people like James Surowiecki, Malcolm Gladwell, and some others, Dan Gardner, for writing about business topics. And the third one, because you will encounter resistance and because it's an easy, quick read that you can keep in your back pocket when you're doing it, I do recommend my own management handling resistance pocketbook, because you will handle resistance. You will encounter resistance, and this doesn't only tell you what sort of resistance you will encounter and how to understand the resistance, but it gives you lots of techniques and tips for how to deal with resistance. 8 of them come directly from my experience of doing Aikido, which is a martial art based on not resisting. And it takes that as a metaphor and a way of understanding the different approaches you can take to handling resistance based on not resisting the resistance. So we welcome the resistance and then we deal with it. But if you really want to learn about change, the best place to start, I would say, is my organizational change course. So for, can't remember the name of the account, to level up, that's it. Harley in Toronto. If you want a certification, then I can't offer that. But if you want a good basic learning course that covers managing change effectively, then my Managing and Leading Change course, I think, gives you everything you need. It talks about some of these models, but it does not use proprietary stuff, and it uses my way of articulating things. So if you like my style, then you'll like this course. So there is a link in the description that will take you straight to this course, and with a 30% discount applied. So here we are. You'll see this. You'll get this. Enroll in this course now. It's 30% off the original price. The original price, I think, is $47. If you're in a country that has sales taxes or VAT, as I am, then that will be added as well. But it's 30% off, and it's a decent sized course, lots of good content, broken, and there's a case study that runs through it, which you can do with that case study exercise that you can do, and explanations of the answer of how I would answer them. But it introduces change at work. Then step 1 is demonstrate the need for change. This is my kind of step, I think it's 7-step process. Create a compelling future, expect an argument, which is the resistance bit. I'll do the onion model much better than I did it just now in the course. Handling resistance, more on that. And then steps 4, 5 and 6, a 6-step model, which is leading the change, which actually brings it into the project arena and makes the link to project management. So I hope that some of you will think that you want to support this channel, which I give a lot of my time, I hope, and a lot of value as well. If you want to support it, one way to do that is to buy the course, and you get something of real value too. Any chat since I've been talking? Ali says human resources aligned to mission. Absolutely, yes. You need to align your human resources to mission. Yeah. Earth PM. Oh, hi, Rich. Good to see you here. So Earth PM is Rich Maltzman, who is a real project manager, teaches at Boston University now, having walked the talk for many years. He says, D, I have a guest speaker in my PM classes from the theatre arts. Oh, fantastic. She talks about project management for a tour of Aida and the Lion King around 10 cities in China. Fascinating talk. Perhaps, Rich, you can put a link to her LinkedIn profile in the chat so that we can all find out who she is. And Rich, privately, if you think she would make a good interviewee for my channel, do get in touch with her. And you didn't? Oh yes, you did say she. Do get in touch with her, see if she'd be up for it, and if so, make the connection, because that sounds great. Anand says hi. Hi, Anand. I'm waving at the screen, but I haven't got the camera on. Bear with me. My mouse is always finicky when I'm doing live streams. I've never figured out why. Anand says hi. Hi, Anand. D says, that's amazing. Is there any way to access this follow-up name speaker? Yeah, that's exactly the question I asked. Okay, great minds. Stand by for her name, says Earth PM. Fantastic. By the time you hear me say that, of course, it will be there. To Level Up says, so is that, can't remember what your name was, To Level Up. Harley, I think. Harley, you're very welcome. Do check out the course, yes. Okay, so we're coming to the end of today. I've shown you everything I intended to show you. If there are any more questions, I'd be delighted to try and answer them. So last chance, this is the last call for questions, ideas, tips, thoughts, insights, whatever. While you're thinking about that, I will just say that our next live stream will be on the 2nd of May, which is the day after the bank holiday if you're in the UK and other countries that have a 1st of May, first Monday in May bank holiday. So that's people like, Samuel, who's just checked in, and also Hamburg Gumbo and a couple of others who have checked in from the UK. So that is the day after the bank holiday, so some people may be on holiday. I will be talking about failure. I haven't yet decided whether I'm going to talk about personal failure or project failure. It'll probably be project failure, but I've also spotted Tunde Ade has come in, and Tunde, you're in these calls a lot, and I know you evolved from here, so I am going to make you a moderator. add as a moderator, which means that you get a spanner by your name, and you can paste links in, and you can also moderators can also do a favour. We haven't had it for a while, but occasionally we get spammers joining the chat who want to peddle whatever nefarious things that they choose to peddle, whether it's cryptocurrency or even more unsavoury things. So if you've got a spanner by your name and you spot a comment that you think is nobody wants to see, then these are the people I trust to just remove that comment, who can do that and throw that person out. So my pleasure today. So yeah, we'll be talking about failure on the 2nd of May for anyone who is able to join. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, last call for questions. I'll give it another couple of minutes, and then I will let you have your evening, morning or afternoon back, depending on what part of the planet you're on. It's been a great pleasure, as always. I do enjoy these. I think we've had more chat on this than on many. So I've really enjoyed that. That's the best part for me. Rich says, Earth PM says, thank you, Mike. I understand why we need to make this change. Thank you from Ian. Hopefully, before I log off, Earth PM can post the name of the arts person, so we can all go find out about her, arts and PM. So I'm blithering now. Shall have a glass of water and practice some silence. Anyway, if you've got to check out, do check out. Say goodbye. Hambo has to go. I'm just going to wait another minute or two in the hope that Rich can post something. Otherwise, Rich, you can always add it to the chat. Not to the chat, to the comments section. Alice says thank you. Thank you very much, Alice, and goodbye. Patrick, like and subscribe. Yes, I never say like and subscribe. I never say give a super chat if you want to ask a question or just pay me some money. But I don't really. I feel really bad about that. But yes, do add a like to this, please, because that really will help the YouTube algorithm give this to more people who watch similar things to what you watch. So that's good. And subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, because that helps the channel grow. I'm hoping to get to 100,000 by the end of the year. I don't think it's possible. On my current trajectory, it's going to be the end of February. So just under a year from now, when I hit 100,000 subscribers. But it would be marvellous if I could get to 100,000 by the end of the year. We kind of like big dates and stuff. I am already starting to think, what can I do to celebrate 100,000 subscribers? If you have any ideas, let me know. I just kind of want that silver play button that other YouTubers who have 100,000 subscribers get. I'm told that 0.6% of YouTubers make it to 100,000, which is a tiny proportion. But with your help and the help of another 20-odd thousand people, or 20,000 odd people maybe, I will do that, and that would be marvellous. D says, what are your thoughts on the PMQ qualification? So that's PMQ, I think, is one of the APM's qualifications. I can never remember because the blasted names all sound the same. There's PMF, which I think is PM Fundamentals, which is at the bottom of the ranking. I can never remember exactly the level that the different APM qualifications are at. Let me just check. So it's PFQ, PMQ, and then PPQ. So it's the middle one. So it stands for Project Management Qualification, as opposed to Project Fundamentals Qualification, which is the PFQ, and then the higher one, which is the PPQ, the Project Professional Qualification. I think the APM qualifications are excellent. I say that from the point of view of someone who hasn't done them, and I also need to declare an interest, which is I am attending the APM's conference in June. I should get the date out of my diary for that, so that if any of the Brits are APM members and planning to go, but the APM has a conference in June. It's on the 8th of June, Thursday the 8th of June. I should be there as the APM's guest, and I am discussing possibly doing some sponsored videos. So I am biased in that sense, but I do like the APM. I think their qualifications are excellent. Every qualification holder I know deserves their qualification. I think they are somewhat tougher in some ways than the PMI's qualifications. But as with all qualifications, the question is, what will that do for your job prospect in your chosen industry and your chosen region where you're working? In the UK, APM qualifications are valued by a lot of organisations in a way that PMI qualifications aren't. But if you go to most countries in the world, APM qualifications aren't known, but the CAPM, which I guess is sort of the PFQ and the PMQ straddle CAPM, PMP broadly equivalent to the PPQ. So I think it's an excellent qualification. Whether it's right for you, I can't know. But to talk to recruiters, talk to employers about what they're looking for, look at the things, and if where you might want to work next, those sorts of organisations value APM qualifications, then do it. It will also teach you a lot. It's really good in terms of the learning. And remember, one of the things I like about the APM qualifications is the syllabus. I can't remember which one I was looking at the syllabus recently, but every element of the syllabus starts with understanding. You need to demonstrate that you understand. Not that you know, but that you understand. And I think that's really, really important. So I'm a big fan of the APM's qualifications, D. So in principle, yes. I think if you're doing stuff in the UK, as I think you are, then that's really good. I think you're South West London, aren't you? If I remember right. Ali says, thank you, Mike Clayton, my teacher. My pleasure. To Level Up's retracted their message. Sorry about that. You the top, says Earth PM. Cheers and thanks. Tunde says thanks. D says please see question. Yep, I think I saw that. By the way, you can always, if you're on this call and you didn't get your question answered, you can always email me, or if you've got a follow-up, let me put my email address in the chat. It's mike@onlinepmcourses.com, in case I spell it wrong. I think I spelt it right. So yeah, you can do that. To level up, have an idea when you reach your subscriber goal. May do a raffle for a free course. Yeah, that's an easy win. Certainly can do that. I think I did that when I hit 10,000 or something. Or was it my first live stream? I did that, something like that. So yeah, that's not a bad idea. So that's good. I think we do better than one free course for the raffle for 100,000. So we can do something generous. Anyway, I think probably I've given Earth PM enough time to try to find the name of that speaker, and obviously hasn't been able to. So if you're able to add it to the comments later, that'd be great. I'm going to give you your morning, afternoon or evening back and say goodbye. Thank you all very much for attending. It's been my pleasure. I hope to see many of you this time at the start of May, 2nd of May, same time, same place. Take care. And I'll see you next time.